And today we're starting the new book. Um, see if I get to the cover page. This is a specific study guide, so it's a more condensed version. A lot of this we've covered already, but if you wanted to get a certification in this, then they offer one. Oracle does. Oracle certifications are pretty recognized ones. You find some out there that they give certifications on various languages or products that really aren't worth much, but Oracle's a decent company to go with certifications. Okay, back to where I was. This is chapter one, um, Java building blocks, and again, this covers a lot of different topics we've seen already. Define the scope of variables, structure of a Java class. This is talk about command line, and I may try to do this, see if I'm successful. Um, Import other Java packages, compare and contrast features, work with Java types, so forth. Understand Java class structure. Remember when we created an object, we created a class. That's what this is. So everything in Java is based upon classes. When you add just a little bit of code here, again, it's an object you just created. Let's see. Look at field methods and comments. Java classes have two primary elements. Methods. This is code you can run, like main, or in some of these other ones, print, shuffle. These are all methods we created. So code you can run. Different languages call this different things. They say also called functions and procedures. Some languages call them subroutines. All a variety of names that are given to them. And then fields, more generally known as variables. This has got many names: fields, variables, class variables. Just all over the board on that. And together, those are the members of the class. Here's declaring a class, a object called animal, and then it's got a variable, an attribute called name. Remember the gets and sets? Well, this shows the get name and set name. Typically, you don't just so say string like that. If I come over here and over this one, 14, and I'll do a right click on that and choose new. There, and we'll call it is it animal with a little a and a big A. And then add string name. Big S. Then add a public void set name. String name. This dot name is equal to name. And we had our public we're returning a string, get name, where we say return this.name. They'll talk about this later on. They're just generally introducing the concept, but this is what we're seeing already with our gets and sets. Through your code over here, remember to create an instance. You can say animal A is equal to new animal. Then A dot name. You see names accessed directly here. And the typical idea is when you're doing gets and sets that you make this private. So they can't access it directly. That over here, if I try to do a dot name now, wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have to do a set name and ard or assuming I spelled it right. But they don't have private on this string name. I notice that they have a different parameter here, string new name, versus this. Some people like that because then it doesn't get confusing. You don't have name equals name. But this always refers to the current instance of whatever you're working with. Full declaration, or he's talking about the different definitions. Void means nothing's returned. Parameter is sometimes called an argument, it's what you're passing in. Full declaration of method is called a method signature. And this is asking to identify the return type, which is an integer, and parameter, which is month. Comments, remember, is a slash for a single comment. Multiple lines, you do a slash, asterisk, and an asterisk slash down here. See, if you decide you want to become certified in that, they would ask you like, how do you specify a single line comment? How do you specify a multiple line comment? Those might be typical questions you might see. Although they give you questions that would be on it, the type. Now here we have classes versus files. Most of the time, each Java class is defined in its own .java file. It says it's usually public, which means any code can call it. So we did here, public. Interestingly, Java does not require a class be public. For example, this class is just fine. We don't put public in front of it. You can even put two classes in the same file. When you do so, one of the classes of the file is allowed to be public. That means the file containing the following is also fine. So we've got public class animal and then class animal 2. If I came over here, let's see, that one ends at public class animal 2. Class animal2 is public, should be declared in a file named animal2.java. But if I change that and get rid of the public, then you see I don't have any kind of error there. And if I come over here, then if I do animal2, and just save time. Public a2 dot name equals David. System dot out print line a2 dot name. And if I run that, if I save it, how many times I forget that? Then I run it. Then it finds class. And you see it prints David. So that's what they're talking about, is you can have multiple classes within one file. I don't know why they designed it that way, to be honest. You might say, well, if this is private, how can I access it? Well, let me put private, but remember, these are classes that you can import into anything. But yeah, I don't know why I don't know why you can't have two. Maybe it'll say. Maybe just by design. If you do have a public class, it needs to match file name. Now this is what we've been talking about, main, in all of our programs. Well, all of our console-based programs. This is what I keep copying over and over. Now this is nothing special. This is a method. And by default, Java goes out there and looks for a method called main and runs it. Now this came up and asked us, but if you were, I believe, use a console, it assumes that you named it main. It says a main method is a gateway between the startup of a Java process, which is managed by the Java Virtual Machine, JVM, and the beginning of the programmer's code. JVM calls an underlying system to allocate memory and CPU time, access files, and so on. Okay, now here's the part I don't know if I'll be able to do. We'll try it. Make directory Java test. Java test. Notepad test dot class. I want to create a new file. Yes. Cheat. Bring this over. Test. And system.out.print line. Hello world. I'll save. And let's see, notepad, run it.bat. Bat is a batch file. You want to create it. Batch file is a file that consists of lines of system code that you want to run. And what world's this? Okay, that's what window. JDK is the development kit. JRE is the runtime. I'm looking for Java C. Java C. Maybe it's not Java C. Let's see what it is. That says Java C. Java C. Asterisk, asterisk. Java's there. Oh, I'm in the runtime. Never mind. Development kit. That's where Java C's at. Of course, where it's at, I don't have no clue. Probably into the bin. There's Java C. Okay. Right click on it. Open file location. Click up here, right click on this. Okay, I think I might have everything I need. Now remember, dir is how you do a directory. We created test.class. So now I want to compile it. So if I do bin java c test, and I'm going to copy this to the clipboard. So I don't want to run it yet. Control C. It looks like the same name except for JDK, it's JRE. Let me put some kind of garbage in front of it. I don't think that's comment, but it'll work, I think. Save that. Okay, so now if I type run it, it's not recognized as an internal or external command. Operable, okay. Notepad, run it.bat. Okay, save that. Go type run it. Error, class name. Tests are only accepted if annotation processing explicitly requested. .java. Oh, what did I name it? Okay, so how do you rename? Rename test.class as test.java. NetBeans really does spoil me. Still got something right or wrong. Okay. Notepad, run it.bat, test.java. Save that. Run it. Okay, now what it does is it creates a test.class. So you don't have to use any kind of environment at all. You don't have to use NetBeans. You don't have to use Eclipse. You could just get a Notepad, write your Java programs. All the screen design we're seeing, you can do all that in Notepad. Just tedious. Reason why I show this is if you're trying to work on a machine that does not have a nice GUI, this is how you'd have to do it. This compiles it. So this takes our source code and compiles it. Not to an exe, but it compiles it to something where we can now do our Java runtime. We want to talk more about that. So now, Notepad, run it.bat. I'm going to run this. And I want Java. I think I just put the test. I don't think I put anything else there. Okay, save that. Run it. And prints my hello world. This is how I learned Java way back when. That's the most tedious thing in my entire life. You could actually try to run it from this directory here, but unfortunately, that directory I don't have rights to write any file out to it. So when I did this and I tried to write test.class out to it, then it would not work, and I'd have to figure directories. If you're going to do it, then I'd recommend using Notepad and doing what you see what I did. Now, it won't always be this because again, this keeps changing version wise. Is there any questions on how to run that by some kind of console mode? No, there's a way to do that. Well, yeah, you do have to conclude them, but yeah, let's do that right. Notepad, run it.bat. See if I remember how to do it. It's been a while since I worked with DOS. Exactly there. If I change it to the directory, like that, and then there's a way to put it as output, I think you have to do O-O test or C colon, what's this directory called? Java test / test dot class, maybe. Boy, my DOS skills are declining quite rapidly. In Java, C colon. You only need a quotes around it if it's got a space in the file name. That's what it was giving me as an error the first time. If I got it right, you can do things like this. And if you're clever with these, you can actually pass this in as a parameter. So it's no longer even hard-coded. Let's see if I'm even close. Java file not found. Test.java. Oh, because I got to tell it where it's at. If you do an up arrow a couple times, it'll get you back to previous commands. Oh, I'm not even. Java test. Notepad, run it. Not bad. Okay. Test.class 955. That's my previous run, I guess. -O. File not found test.java. Okay. Because while I said test.class, well, I said directory. Well, this one I didn't say directory on. Invalid flag -O. So change directory to, or yeah, change directory to program. And if you do a tab, okay, I'm lying to you. Program space files. You could do a tab and do there. Yeah, tab does work there. JDK. So you don't have to. If you do a tab, it does the completion for you. Java C dash help or dash question mark. I don't remember which. Up arrow, and we do a more. That didn't do it. That's Linux. Pause. I use my mouse to scroll up. I don't remember how to pause that. Let's see. Dash G generate output messages. Compiler's doing. Specify word. Dash D for directory. Specify where to place generated class files. Dash D. That's just for the directory, which means I don't want to put the name on there. And I don't know if I put this before or after. I put the test right there. Concept of annotation class. No, I'm not going to get it. At least I got it right the first time. If I was better at batch commands, um, then I could do much more with this. Now, batch is the old way of doing it. They're in Windows, and there's some colleges offer classes on this, and I barely know enough to even point you to the correct location, assuming I can. You ever hear of PowerShell? Yeah, that's really the new um, the new way of doing all this. I'm showing you stuff from the 70s, 80s. Um, yeah, it's supposed to be pretty powerful, but I haven't learned it yet. I won't fumble around with that anymore because I'd just be guessing and I'm not going anywhere. But that's what they're talking about when you see here where they're saying Java C, zoo.java, Java zoo. This compiles it and this runs it. And they're going to talk here pretty soon. If you don't get any error messages, you're successful. You do get error message, check that you've installed JDK and JRE. The JDK is only necessary if you're compiling. You do not need to put this on somebody's machine. We're going to see how to deliver Java programs towards the end of the class or semester. The Java runtime is more if you're wanting to run the code. That's what you need for that. And Java runtime is specific to whatever machine you're on. So I can program a Java program here in my Windows machine and then deliver it to a Mac machine, just as long as it has the JRE. This is what I was talking about. When you do compile it, it's not a true exe. It says must have the extension .java and name of the file must match name of the class. The result is a file of bytecode by the same name. So this is not an exe you can just run. You have to have that runtime. And that actually works out very well because the idea is then you can run that on anything as long as it has a Java runtime. See here, we got this probably makes more sense if you're running it through the command line. But if you want to pass arguments, this is how you do it. We haven't talked about args at all up here, but it's an array of string. And arg0 is your first parameter being passed in. Args1 is your second parameter. When I say parameter, when you run it, you say Java, Java zoo. Okay, zoo is your code that's been created. And then Bronx is args0 and zoo is args1. Why is this beneficial? Well, if you create a Java program that you want to run on a machine every night, you want to kind of create a batch environment. It needs to run at midnight to do some processing. Maybe it's a pretty intense program. So it takes 3 or 4 hours to run. And you can't rely on a person to run it because they come in next day, they maybe forget to fire it off. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they don't want to wait 3 or 4 hours. They want the results immediately that morning. Well, then you can set it up in a environment where you can run it at night. This is especially refined on Linux machines. They got the what is it, cron that you can run. So with a cron, you can schedule a Java program to run in the middle of the night. Used to be they had computer operators, and they still do in some companies, but they would hire somebody to work third shift, and they would sit there and run program after program. And the idea is, hopefully, they would not screw it up. Oftentimes they did. Um, when I worked at Koch Industries, I was on call every so often. And if they screwed up running the jobs, they'd have to call me in during the night, to call me at 2 a.m. and say, we screwed up. We were supposed to run this one first, but we ran this one instead. Then you'd have to go in and explore what damage did it do and so forth. It's just a nightmare. Um, if you ever worked with Linux where it has that cron capability, then it just makes it so much easier to work with because you're telling it exactly what to do. Odds of it screwing up are very slim. I would guess PowerShell probably has some other kind of scheduling too. See, it looks like it has a task scheduler. Don't know how robust it is. I need to buy a book on PowerShell and start learning it. Run whether the user's logged on or not. Get triggers, actions. I don't know if you can schedule it to run on a regular basis, but I expect it's a little bit like cron. Anyway, that's why you want to run it in this kind of mode here. Now, graphical GUI isn't necessarily the best. That's why you have to learn the console, is because sometimes you just have to run it in console mode. A GUI is set up such that you have a user sitting there to input data. And a console is more you want to run in the middle of the night to do some processing. Um, this is what I showed with the DOS commands. Is if you got a space in there, it gets confused. So you have to put quotes around it in order to tell it that's all together. You see, it says all command line arguments are treated as string objects because that was what our main is based upon. Main says we got an array of strings. Now, I don't know how you pass in parameters here. I don't think I've ever done it. I'm sure there is some place where you can tell it the parameters to pass in. But if you bring in like arg0, that comes in as a string. And then, was it double duck parse? Parse double. P1. And then if it truly is a number, you have to do an appropriate parse to convert it to whatever data type you have. You know, just so I expand my own knowledge. I should learn something new each day. Java NetBeans, how to pass in arguments in run or well, that's File project properties. File project properties. Arguments. Cat. Not cat, that's not a number. 13.5. Okay, so let me print that out then. And run that. And print 13.5. So that's how you can test it. It's not obviously not going to come up and ask us, but you can have however many you want. I don't know if there's a limit or not, to be honest. Maybe the limit's on your RAM. David Hayes, Wellington. So we got four arguments there. First name equals args1. Last name equals args2. String city is equal to args3. And then I could print those if I wanted to. So again, you can have however many. That's the way this is designed. Of course, names is what we call it. Void means nothing's returned. Static, this refers to whether you can call it or not call it from outside of this class right here. And public, again, goes along with that. Is it private to this class or public where you can call it outside of that? Static makes some of these available outside of this too. Array index out of bounds exception. Sometimes you get this if you specify okay, as I say, if you specify too many arguments, it shouldn't give you. Too few is what they're saying. So if up here you tell it you're going to have args0 and args1, but you only pass in one parameter, then it doesn't know what to do. So it gives you that error. To review, you need to have a JDK to compile it. You do not have to have a JDK to run the code. JRE is not. Java class files run in JVM and therefore run in a machine with Java rather than just the machine or operating system. So based upon what you've seen so far with a simple program, what's the only thing you need to actually give to the user? The class file. So, and of course, they have to have the Java runtime and so forth. If you have one class file integrates with other ones, then you'd need those also. Yes. Okay, understanding package declarations and imports. Here we got random R equals new random, and they indicate this does not compile. in order to bring code in, you import it. So import java.util.random. And this is what allows you to use it. Over here, import java.util. And these are all the different pieces you can import in. This is all code that other people have written to make your life easier. And you see random is one that's there. I'm like something there. What's wrong with that? Import java.util. Oh, semicolon. And at that point, then I can use random down here. Random R equals new random. What is this doing down here? Creating a, exactly. So this is creating a new instance. You know, I don't really know much about random. I'd be guessing if I remembered the methods that are contained within it. But understanding this concept that this name right here, and when this name matches here, and you got a new, yeah, that's calling the constructor and creating a new instance. These packages have made me so lazy in programming. Used to be I'd have to remember this stuff, but now with just doing a dot, if you got a good IDE, it'll pop up with all the different things you can do. And so I don't have to sit there and remember next int with a big I. You know, it's right here. Now I have to assign that to something, but if I wasn't sure if I needed to assign something, r dot next int. You see over here in the right hand side, it tells you what's returned. So this returns an integer. Next long returns long, next double is double, next float float, and so forth. Okay, so you have to import it. Then they got random r equals new random. Now the code run prints out a random number between 0 and 9, just like arrays. Java tries to begin counting with 0. This r dot next int, see how it goes to 10? It goes to one less, goes to 9. See, that's something I'd have to refresh my memory on if I was going to use next int. I didn't remember that. Okay. Oh, you were asking about multiple classes. We're going to see it here shortly, but there's a way you can group those into packages. Okay, package names are hierarchical, like the mail as well. Okay. Okay, wildcards. Import java.util.asterisk. Imports java.util.random, among other things. Specifically, import, you can use a shortcut to import all the classes in a package. You don't see this a whole lot. The idea in programming is only bring in what you need, not bring everything in, because if you bring everything in, it makes it bigger and so forth. Now, if you're just going to use almost everything in that class file, then or all the classes in that package, then you might as well bring everything in. Okay. Same code here. They're just showing you a different way to import. This talks about redundant imports. Import java.language.system. And then we also got another import here, java.language.asterisk. Says the answer is that 3 of the imports are redundant. Lines 1 and 2 are redundant because everything in java.language is automatically considered to be imported. What I got highlighted right now with the asterisk, go ahead and bring everything in. And if we bring everything in, that includes system. Asterisk in programming is usually a wild card. Let's do some basic PowerShell. I wonder if it does dir. Sure enough. Okay, so if I did dir asterisk.bat, that's a wild card. I have no clue how to make that bigger so you can actually see it. Font. That's how to make it bigger. But again, doing the asterisk there gives you that. It's just the same as DOS. I'll start using PowerShell to get used to it. Okay, back there. This is redundant because if we bring in java.util.asterisk, that includes random. This gives you a question. What imports do you think would work to get this code to compile? Paths.get. Public class input imports. Public void read. Paths.get. Language IO. This vital source just really stinks. But I'm guessing probably this right here. I don't know. Reason it makes me think that is because this is looks like file based. Files, paths.get. So input output would make me think, but we'll see. Maybe they'll give us the answer next page. NIO, I was wrong. 2 possible answers. The short one is a wild card to import both at the same time. I wonder what the difference is between NIO and IO. .nio. I don't know. I don't remember. Okay. Naming complex. One of the reasons for using a package is so that the class names don't have to be unique across all of Java. This means you'll sometimes want to import a class that can be found in multiple places. Common example of this is a date class. Java provides java.util.date and java.sql.date. This is another example where you don't need to know the package name for the OCA exam that will be provided to you. One import would we want if we want to use the java.util.date version. So I could give you the answer right there. Java import java.util.date is true when the other imports are present. Oh, for the asterisk. Oh, I see what you're saying. Move the java.sql.import that we don't need. But what would we need if I need all the other ones? Looks like you put it first, maybe. Put this first, and that takes precedence over the java.sql.date. If you really need to use two classes of the same name, sometimes you really do want to use a date from two different packages. This happens, you can pick one to use and import and use the other fully qualified class name. What that means is I took off my import here and this now broke this. I could type java dot, see if I can remember where it's at, util dot random equals new java dot util dot random. It's a pain because anytime you want to access it, you have to do java.util.random dot next dot. I think it was nextint. So I can come back. Wasn't nextint. Oh, wait a minute. I don't have to do that because I already created an instance. R dot nextint. Yeah, you only have to do it on here when you create your instance. But that's what they mean by fully qualified. Up to now, the code you've written has been a default package. A special unnamed package should use only for throwaway code. You can tell the code is in the default package because there's no package name. I haven't really indicated over here, but you see this is what we're talking about. See how we got our default package? And everything we've been doing has been under this. I didn't even create that default package. That's what put them all under by default. In real life, always name your package to avoid naming conflicts and allow others to reuse your code. And that's a big part of it. Is your goal is that other people can use your code, or you can use it in other programs. Now, here's how you do it down at this level. Got these classes here, class A.java and class B.java. And see how there's a package up here. Now, you see under here in the source package, I do a new, and looks like there's a Java package right here. and see how we create a test down here. So we got our default package where everything's been going. We just create a new one. Oops, I didn't do that. Let's try that again. If I have that one highlighted, when I do my new, you see it creates my new class underneath that package. It's been so long since I've done it by hand, but it appears like you up here, you just put package and then your package name. When you run a Java program, Java knows where to look for those package names. In this case, running from C:temp works because both package A and package B are beneath it. Because you got two class files that get created when you run that, or when you compile, I should say. Now, if you want to compile it with packages, it says you'll learn Java much more easily by using command line to compile and test your examples. I'm not sure about that. Once you know the Java syntax well, you can switch to an integrated development environment IDE like Eclipse. Eclipse is a nice one. It's probably one of the better ones on the market. It's also a challenge to get everything set up. Now, once you get it set up, you can customize everything under the sun for it. But it's not simply run the setup.exe and you're done. Which is why I chose NetBeans, is because it is just run the setup.exe and you're done. I didn't have to help 10 people figure out how to install it on their machines. IDE will save you time in coding, but for the exam, your goal is to know the details about the language, not have the IDE item for you. Entire semester, you haven't heard me say anything about the package here. Because again, it hides it for us. Let's talk about the Windows setup. You create those two files, Class A, Class B. You go to your temp. Compile, we do our Java C. And you see we got two of them here. So we got our package A / class A.java, package B class B.java. Two files will be created, class A.class and class B.class. And this tells you how to run it. I'm just kind of mentioning this here. You can go into a lot more detail at home if you want, if you plan on taking the test. You can get too much on certifications. A lot of people kind of get lost on them. They're excellent because they look good on a resume. But the problem is that they expire every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. They all differ. Adobe has some certifications for the Creative Cloud. Well, they've retired them, and there are no replacements. So, and they're not that cheap to keep a whole bunch of them up and running. So it isn't like you want 100 certifications. Typically, the better ones give you some kind of online training of some sort, like a class or a mini workshop. You have to finish something for your accreditation to get reaccredited and so forth. Dawson, what on your ones you got? What do you have to do? Is it an online class? Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the worst part. You get too many of these, and all of a sudden, all you're doing is CEUs, continuing education. I can't remember what those stand for. But you take them basically like online classes or online workshops or so forth, or um, having restudy for the test, which is good because that shows you still know what you're doing and you've kept up to speed with it. Okay. You can specify the location of other files explicitly using the class path. This technique is useful when the class files are located elsewhere in special jar files. Jar files like a zip file, mainly Java class files, and we'll be seeing more of this. Um, and here's where you see it. This is where we're accessing the jar file. Sometimes it's not so easy to run a Java jar file. I think it was last year in the introduction to computer science class, I had them do some of the labs off of the MindTap, and one of them was to download a jar file and run it. I never had so many questions on anything in my life, so it wasn't very seamless how they had it set up in order to run that jar file. You remember that, Dawson? Yeah, yeah. It was you had to run a jar file and it ran a little program, and it was a little GUI type of deal, and you had to click things, and it was like a simulator. But you must not have any trouble. But a lot of people had. That's why I cut that out of the course. It's like that was a lot of headache. Wouldn't run on this machine. Wouldn't run on this machine. So sometimes when they say Java runs seamlessly on everything, I won't doubt that. But if you don't got it set up correctly, it can create some real headaches. And I assumed that MindTap would have it set up so it run perfectly on everybody's machine, and it didn't. Okay, let's talk about code formatting on the exam. Not all questions will include imports. The exam isn't asked about imports, so often omit the imports to save space. Um, you'll see examples with line numbers that don't begin with 1, like this begins with 6. Um, you assume it's there. So, um, creating objects. We've seen this before. Your constructor. Your class name is chick. Then you have a public chick. Again, doesn't have a void, doesn't have an int, doesn't have a float. This name matches the class name. That's our constructor. And this one doesn't do much except for just print out in constructor. Down here, you got public void chick, begin parentheses, close parentheses, braces, and so forth. It says not a constructor because it has a void. Constructor does not have a return type. Here's an example of a constructor: public class chicken, and then a public chicken. Uppercase matches and everything. This is our constructor, and it assigns the name, the value of Duke. Um, Reading and writing object fields. We have number of eggs. Um, well, this is a strange one. They're creating an instance Based upon the class name that main is in, which I guess there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just so used to it being in a separate file. So implication on, let me get rid of this. Delete. So that would imply here, new class S1 equals new class. Public string name. S1.name equals David. Does that make sense of what that example is indicating? Used to the main being like a driver program, and your class being a separate file, but to indicate you can have it in one. You can. That just seems so weird. To me, it's more logical to have them separate. The idea is your driver program is just testing it. And your class being separate means that it's a completely separate class that you can use anywhere. Reading variables known as getting it. Of course, then we're talking about setting it. You can even read and write fields directly in a line declaring them. So, code between a brace is called a code block. Sometimes code is being inside a brace. Anywhere you see brace is a code block. So I think 1, 2, I think 3, but this isn't actually in the main. Yeah, 3 code blocks. One instance initializer. Other times code blocks appear outside a method. These are called instance initializers. Okay, so this last one is an instance initializer. Since it's outside the main method. Order of initialization. When writing code to initialize this field in multiple places, you have to keep track of the order of initialization. Meantime, you need to remember fields and instant initializer blocks are run in the order in which they appear in the file. Constructor runs after all field and instance initializer blocks have run. So it'll set this right here before it does the constructor. So check. Here's a constructor down here, which makes sense because if you're needing to access the value here for some reason, when you have your constructor, then you want to set that first. Okay. When I can go into all that, you can read that. That might not be we've got about 3 minutes, probably not enough time to go into object references and primitives. So I think we'll stop there. If nothing else, I would encourage you. I'm not going to assign anything there, but I would encourage you to go into PowerShell and just do some of these commands you've seen me do. Like I say, you'll find other colleges will have a complete class on PowerShell. Um, because if you're needing to, from a computer science standpoint, work with the the Windows system and so forth, then you can use PowerShell. You can even access through PowerShell if you have this running on a server. So if you have it on a Windows server, you can do PowerShell. They were wanting me to access some user groups off the network via PowerShell, and what were they wanting on that? I told them I didn't know PowerShell. It's like, well, I can't help you. But they're needing to do that for the website for some reason. I can't remember the exact what they were asking me about. But it's something you would need to do. We'll go ahead and stop there.